Radio. I'm Nick Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
We got a good podcast today, Jared. A lot of NFL talk. Crazy week in the NFL last Sunday, but even it stretched to Monday and Thursday with a lot of the big teams losing this week, including the Patriots, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Los Angeles Rams with big losses this week. We're going to talk all about it coming up on the podcast. Jared, but I want to start with you. How was your weekend this weekend?
It was great, man. I had a very relaxing weekend. On Sunday, I was on the couch, didn't move. I moved once to get food.
Thing. I literally did the same thing.
That
I
was
just sat
it.
And watched football.
Yeah, it was couch potato. It was probably one of the best Sundays I've had in a very long time. Football all day. Got up once to eat, and that was about it. So it was great. Couldn't have asked for anything better. How about you?
Dude, I did the same thing. I kind of woke up at like 9:30, got to watch the pregame shows for football, got to see that the pregame shows at the Coliseum. I thought that was pretty cool. We obviously had that huge Rams-Eagles game. We'll talk about that just in a second. But, yeah, man, I just sat there, and a lot of the games were really entertaining, especially here in L.A. The L.A. teams had a lot of entertaining games. So I was more than happy just to sit there and watch all those games, including all up until the Sunday night games.
Oh, yeah, my Cowboys were on early.
Exactly,
the 10 o'clock game, and then the 1 o'clock game, you have the Eagles and Rams matchup.
Oh, wow,
and then that was on Vox, and then on CBS, you had the Chargers playing the Redskins, and they whooped them.
They just
continued.
So
that wasn't much of a game, but no, there was football on all day. It was great. I haven't really been able to do that all year long, kind of sit and
you were mentioning that.
watch and analyze.
I knew you actually got a Sunday off.
Yeah.
To watch
it was nice. It was much needed. Yeah. So hopefully we can continue that every Sunday.
Well, with the Christmas break coming up and a lot of people going on, we'll probably be able to watch a lot more football too anyways. So, should be interesting. Now let's talk about that big game you mentioned, the Rams and Eagles. Two storylines that I can come out of with this game. Well, actually, maybe even three. Number one, though, the loss of Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is out for the season. Torn ACL. It was probably the worst possible injury that could happen in the NFL. Maybe Tom Brady getting hurt would have been a little bit worse. But seriously, Carson Wentz, who is pretty much going to be the NFL MVP, I still believe could be the NFL MVP. LeBron James agrees with me as well that he should be the MVP. Nonetheless, though, he's out for the season. He's not going to be in the playoffs. Nick Foles is now going to be the new quarterback. He actually led them to a win against the Rams, who now dropped to 9-4. But Jared, what is the loss of Carson Wentz due to the Eagles? Can Nick Foles take over the reins and continue, or is this a massive loss for Philadelphia?
It's obviously a massive loss. Yeah. When you have a quarterback, a first-round pick, playing as well as Wentz was playing, there's no denying that there's going to be a drop-off in play. Now, the good thing for the Eagles is that Nick Foles has not only been with his Eagles team for over a year, but he also he was the starting quarterback for this team. Was about 2 years ago.
Back when Michael Vick got hurt for that.
Yes. And so he's been with this organization before. This is his second go-around, and he's been in this same offensive system for over a year. So it's not like you're throwing a rookie into the fire who has never, ever played a down in the NFL before. He has experience, and basically what he needs to do is lean on everyone else. Lean on your other star athletes. Don't turn the ball over. Manage the game. And I think the Eagles will be fine. Obviously, I don't see them going to the Super Bowl now. I think you need a star caliber quarterback to get you to that Super Bowl level, caliber, I guess. But I think they will still, I can see them winning a playoff game at home. But like I said, all Nick Foles needs to do is manage the game.
Absolutely.
And I know you want your quarterback to take some chances and take shots and be aggressive. But at this point in the season, with how well of a team that they have put around them, you just have to lean on your running backs, lean on the defense, and don't turn the ball over. Just be, very vanilla in a sense, in my opinion. And I think that's how they're going to have to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. You mentioned the weapons. Jay Ajayi, very good running back. Receiving core of Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey leading the way, along with Zach Ertz and the rest of the tight ends on that team. Offensive line is still good, even after losing Jason Kelce earlier in the season. The defense, obviously, still about the same. The thing with this, though, is you're right. Nick Foles, you kind of need that elite quarterback or at least a quarterback that's played elite this season to get you to the Super Bowl. And I agree with you. In such a tough NFC conference, I mean, maybe the AFC, they have a little better of a chance getting to the Super Bowl. But with the NFC, I mean, we're going to talk about all these teams. You have Carolina, Minnesota, the Packers and Cowboys getting stars returned to their team. And the Los Angeles Rams are no slouch either. I mean, the Rams were back and forth with them and stood up with them toe-to-toe in that game. So I think it's almost impossible for the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl now. Unless Foles is just... Maybe Foles is... the only way they could get there is if Foles is just plays out of his mind for the next 2 weeks. But I don't think the play calling will let him play out of his mind.
No.
So I would have to predict that the Eagles would probably not make the Super Bowl. Sucks for Eagles fans. I know, Jared, there's a little bit of you that's probably happy about this. I could see you start to smile. It'd be a lot like if the Seahawks lost Russell Wilson for me, even though we're probably not going to the playoffs as a Cardinals fan. Sometimes your team's, your rival's team loses a guy and you're a little bit happy, but you got to feel bad for him too as well, because this guy was supposed to be the next future guy and the next guy that was going to lead Philadelphia sports to a championship, and that's probably not going to happen now.
No, it's not. Listen, I never ever wish any type of injury on anyone, whether it's a Cowboys player or an opponent or a rival. That is something that I never wish, especially an ACL, something like this, where he's going to be out for the next 6 to 8 months.
I think it's more than that. I think someone was saying a full recovery is about 9 to 12 months.
Really?
So there's a chance he doesn't start next season.
That's true as well, because it's so late in this season.
Exactly. You want to get these injuries at the beginning of the year like a lot of the other stars have, or even in the middle of the year.
Yeah, so no, I do not wish any type of injury on him. I mean, as a Cowboys fan, yes, I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to go as far in the playoffs anymore. So from that standpoint, I guess I'm happy. I don't want to see the Eagles in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl.
Makes sense.
But as far as an injury, no. I listen, he was having a fantastic year. And listen, if the Eagles... The last couple weeks of the season and then, going into playoffs, if they don't play well, if the offense starts to sputter and they, just kind of fall flat, then I think that's a better chance that Carson Wentz does get the NFL MVP, because then I think that shows how much he really means to this offense. So not to say that he can't get it if the Eagles do play well, but yeah, if they come out and, they're not scoring touchdowns and they can't put up points like they have been for the first, 13, 14 games of the season, then I definitely think he still deserves to be in that conversation, because it shows that, hey, without him, they wouldn't be where they are right now.
That's true. No, and so we look back at the game itself. We talk about the injury, and the injury is bad. But the game itself, I think, was actually key for the Eagles, because they get a win. They win the NFC East. They don't make it so the Cowboys can actually end up coming back. Because let's say Foles loses the next 3 games. If they would have lost this game against the Rams, there's a chance the Cowboys could tie them a record to actually beat them for the NFC East.
Yes.
So huge win for them. And it kind of solidifies that they're going to be one of the top seeds in the NFC too. Even if they do lose, let's say, 2 games, they'll probably still be up there in the seeds. But let's talk about the Rams now, because the Rams had a golden opportunity to vault themselves into the top 2 teams, and they did not do that. They lose to the Eagles, who lost Carson Wentz. I believe it was in the third quarter. Was it the third quarter when Wentz got hurt?
Yeah, it was like late third quarter.
Yeah, third quarter. So they had an entire quarter to face Nick Foles. And when Nick Foles came in, he did okay, but it wasn't like he wasn't
lighting up the scoreboard.
He didn't set the field on fire or anything like that. It was more just managing the game, kind of running out the clock. And the Rams ended up losing 43-35. It really was 37-35. A fumble at the very end of the game gets the extra touchdown. But what does this say about the Rams? Because they had a golden opportunity to win a big game in their home crowd. That was the best crowd I've seen at the Coliseum for an NFL game in my lifetime. So that was the crowd was hyped. It looked like it was pretty filled. I know they only put like 70,000 people in the stadium, so it's never going to look completely filled, but from what I heard, it was raucous in there, and the Rams don't get a win. Does this concern you for LA going into the playoffs, that they can't beat the very, very good teams, because they've lost to the Vikings this season already, and they lost to the Eagles with an undermanned team?
It doesn't necessarily concern me, because I think they can compete. I mean, the score was 43-35.
Yeah.
So they didn't get
really
blown out.
37-35 too. With
right.
That touchdown at the end.
Yes. Yeah. I think the issue with this Rams team, and I know you watched this game as well, so you know what I'm talking about. It was in the third quarter, and it was before Carson Wentz got injured. The Eagles were driving and marching down the field. The Eagles actually should have either punted the ball or ended up settling for a long field goal. 2 separate occasions, Rams defenders got called for personal foul penalties. One was taunting on the cornerback Jermaine Johnson.
It's such a stupid penalty.
He made a really, really nice play on the ball. Broke the pass away. It was incomplete. It was going to be 4th down. the Eagles are going to have to kick a field goal, boom, get the Rams offense back on the field. Well, he taunts the receiver afterwards. The ref is standing right there, throws the flag, 15-yard penalty, and the Eagles get an automatic first down. They keep marching. And then it was another almost same bonehead play, and there was another 15-yard penalty against the Rams defense. So they seriously kept the Eagles offense on the field. And to me right there, I think that is more concerning than this actual loss, because I don't think these players are disciplined. Yeah. When you are a 9-4 team, or at that point a 9-3 team with a chance to beat the number one team in your conference and leapfrog them for the number one seed, and you make bonehead plays like that, that shows that your head isn't necessarily in the right place, or you're not thinking about the team. You're thinking about yourself too much. So for them, they deserve to lose that game. At least those two players, that the defense did, because they did not hold up their end of the bargain. Listen, you put up 35 points in the NFL, you should be able to win every single week. The fact that the defense gave up, like you said, 37, even though with that late score at the end to make it 43 for the Eagles, your defense can't give up that many points. And when you want to keep giving the opponent opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, eventually listen, that's not playoff football right there.
I agree with you completely. I was going to actually mention that Johnson play, because that was the end of it was a third down and long or something, and he just decides to taunt him after breaking up a pass. It really wasn't even like the receiver for the Eagles hadn't said anything to him either. It was really just the Rams player kind of bullying the Eagles player on that play. Gets a penalty, starts on the drive, and I believe they score a touchdown on the drive. I mean, it's just that stuff is so dumb. Anytime it happens in the NFL specifically, because these guys are pros. What are you doing taunting a guy in the third quarter or whatever, I don't understand it. The Rams also lose one of their corners in this game as well. He's out for the season as well, torn Achilles.
Webster.
Yeah, Kayvon Webster. I was looking for the name. And Tremaine Johnson actually at one point, I believe, might have actually left the field too. So the Rams are getting beat up. They lose a game. Now they're really fighting for to try to get that second home game, because the Rams are going to clearly make actually, think about this too. The Rams play the Seahawks this week. If the Rams lose to the Seahawks this week, they don't win the division.
Wow.
So the Rams, with this loss, really put themselves with a chance to be in the wild card game and not even have a home game, their first game. So if they would have got this win, this game against Seattle would not mean as much, even though they would have lost the season series to them 2-0. This win was big for the Rams that they needed, and they didn't get it. And they didn't get it at home, and they didn't get it when they actually had a legit crowd at the game for once. And that's what's disappointing for people here in LA, that the Rams couldn't get it done. Anything you want to add about this game? Anything else you want to add about this? This was a top game.
Yeah, up until that Wentz injury and the Rams defense acting like a bunch of idiots, it was honestly a great game. And that's absolutely what you want to see. It was two top teams going at it. Both teams that will, obviously the Eagles are going to be in the playoffs, and the Rams hopefully will be in the playoffs. And who knows, you could see a rematch of these two teams down the road. But listen, obviously the injuries did pile up for both of these teams, and it's something that now, next man up mentality that both these teams are going to have to face and deal with. So it was a great game, one of the better games of the weekend, and it lived up to the hype.
Absolutely, and a lot of the bigger games and bigger matchups this week ended up having back and forth games. The Steelers game, Steelers-Ravens game did. The Atlanta Falcons, New Orleans Saints game on Thursday night was one of the better Thursday night games this season, and obviously Eagles and Rams. We look forward to their games this week. Let's move on to one of the best teams in the AFC, the Pats. The New England Patriots played the Miami Dolphins this week on Monday Night Football. Most of you probably watched this game due to it being a national TV game. And Pats look, to be honest, terrible in this game. I was watching it for fantasy reasons, so I didn't. I was kind of cheering for certain players to do well. So I don't necessarily want to analyze the entire game, but it just seemed like Tom Brady could never get a rhythm. I guess maybe Gronkowski was a reason for this. This concerns me a little bit for the Pats, because they have a huge game against Pittsburgh Steelers this week. This is the two best teams in the AFC going off against each other. 11-2 Steelers versus the 10-3 Pats. And a lot of people were saying this, and I saw this on Twitter a lot. If the Patriots are giving 27 points up to the Dolphins, and it's a legit 27 points too, what are the Steelers going to score against this Patriots defense? And that's been the struggle the entire season. New England's defense has not been very good. And even going into this game, I remember I haven't been able to see a lot of Pats games this week. or this season, I just for some reason don't tend to watch a lot of their games because I just assume they're going to win a lot. But when they do the little lineup thing for Monday Night Football, man, I had no idea who any of their defensive linemen were. I had never heard of any of them. Their linebackers are nobodies too. It's just this defense is an average defense at best. Do you agree with me?
I do, and it's been because of injury mostly.
Yeah.
This defense to begin the year, I think the first couple games gave up like 27 points,
Besides
30
the DBs,
points.
the DBs are pretty good, but besides the DBs, everyone else is.
Yeah, no, the defense as a whole is not the typical Patriots defense that we're used to. And I think a part of that has to do with the offense as well, because I don't think the offense has really played up to its potential the entire year either. So
Right.
I think it goes hand in hand. But no, you're definitely right. Listen, if the Dolphins can put up 27 points, what are the Steelers going to do? But going back to this game, Jay Cutler actually looked like an NFL quarterback.
Right?
And
Great
that was very, very shocking to me. He had better numbers than Tom Brady. Tom Brady obviously had 2 interceptions in the game. But no, I think there were 2 keys of why the Patriots lost. One, I think, was Gronk. Suspended for obviously his stupidity of a play last week against the Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White. So he was suspended this Monday night game. And 2, I think the Patriots honestly were looking ahead to the Steelers. I think they went up in this matchup. I think it's just human nature. You have a Dolphins team coming in at 5-7. You know they're not going to make the playoffs. They're in your division. You play them twice a year. You know them. Tom Brady and the rest of this coaching staff knows this Dolphins team by well. I'm not saying that they were not respecting the Dolphins, but I think it's just going back to human nature. When you have an opponent like the Steelers on your schedule, I think everyone circles that on their calendar.
Yeah.
And so they said, all right, let's go into Miami. Let's whoop the Dolphins real quick, come out of here healthy, and let's really get ready for next week. And I think that's what they did. They came in expecting to just kind of roll over the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, listen, these guys get paid as well.
Absolutely.
So even though they might not be in playoff contention, they're still going out there looking to, play well for their home fans and collect a paycheck. So it just shows that you can't look past any team, and I think that's what this Patriots team did.
Well, yeah, and I don't want to get
yesterday.
too much into the Dolphins but they actually did save their playoff chances for this. The AFC, a lot of the teams in the bottom have pretty bad records, so there's actually a chance some of these teams around 8-8 probably will make the playoffs in the AFC. I mean, just look at the Chargers, for example. They're 7-6, but they're not really 7-6.
No, the Chargers are a
their
way
last
better
9
team.
games. So that's what I'm talking. It just some of these teams are playing better than their records show. But like I said, we're not going to talk about Dolphins. Great showing for them. I don't know if they can do this every week. Kenyon Drake looks like a legit running back for them for the future. But just going back to the Pats, it just seems like, there was some off. I guess Gronk was a big deal for this. But the running game did nothing either. I mean, look at the running game stats. 25 yards total for the entire game.
Woo.
I mean, come on. They only ran the ball 10 times, gained Deion Lewis 17 yards, Rex Burke had 8. Great game, I guess. But so I just think that against the Steelers this week, and we'll talk about this game later as far as a prediction, but I just think that against a team that I really think is one of the best teams in the NFL in the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm really jumping on their bandwagon. It sucks that they lost Shazier for the season. He's on IR now. No more of this. Oh, he's coming back in a week or anything. No, he's out for the season. So they lose their main guy. That did affect them against the Baltimore Ravens this week. But I just see the Steelers being a better team than New England this year. Do you agree?
As of right now, yes, they are. The Steelers on both sides of the ball are playing a lot better, even though they did give up 30-plus points to the Ravens.
Yeah.
No, I think as a whole, the Steelers right now are clicking on all cylinders, and this is a home game for the Steelers. I think that's another big key.
It's big.
The Patriots at home just tend to play better, and the last 2 times the Steelers have gone into Foxborough, it hasn't been pretty at all.
No.
The fact that the Steelers get this game at home, it could be potentially snowing. That's not going to be a problem for the Patriots because they play outdoor and they play in the snow all the time as well. But no, I think that's a big boost that the Steelers do get this home matchup. They get that crowd, and it's just going to be tougher and tougher for this Patriots offense to execute.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, but it's just funny because you don't see the Patriots kind of fail in a game like this a lot. And it just seemed against the Dolphins, they failed on all cylinders. Late in the game, obviously they came back, and it was they made the score close, but it really wasn't that close, that game. I mean, it just seemed like Dolphins were going to win the entire time, which you don't say a lot. The Dolphins were going to win a game the entire time. But it's interesting. Let's move on real quick. We got about 5 minutes left in the segment about that Steelers-Baltimore game, because this was a big game for the AFC North. The Steelers end up winning the game, winning the AFC North, so they're going to have a home game for sure their first round. They'll probably be number 1, 2, or 3 seed in the playoffs as well. But how big of a game is this for the Steelers to win against New England after this big win against Baltimore, due to the fact that they could potentially have 2 home games against New England this season if we look forward to the playoffs too? Because they'll probably be the clear number 1 seed in the AFC if they win this game. How big is this game for the Steelers?
I think listen, when you're playing a team twice in a season, especially when they're not in your division, I think the going from the first game to the second game, it's always completely different. So this first matchup that we're going to see this weekend with the Steelers and the Patriots, it will be, I'm going to pick the Steelers to win. I know we're going to talk about it and dive into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think the second matchup could really favor the Patriots, because then you're gonna have legit game film from only a few weeks ago, and with Bill Belichick and his scheming and his mastermind, the way that he is able to come up with adjustments and that type of thing, I would actually favor the Patriots in the rematch because of Bill Belichick and like I said, the adjustments that they will be able to do. So I'm gonna give this to the Steelers in game 1, but if they see each other again in the playoffs, even if it's in Pittsburgh, I'm going to go with the Patriots.
Well, and let's talk about this, too. The Steelers' offense running on all cylinders. Ben Roethlisberger against Baltimore, 500 yards. Now, he threw 66 times. 500 yards in the game. Antonio Brown, for the 3rd consecutive week, 10 catches, almost 200 yards.
It's like a video game.
It's stupid. And Le'Veon Bell just keeps running defenders over in these games.
And this is all without Smith-Schuster, by the way.
Exactly. In this
Who
game,
will be back
this
this
game
week.
Specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, they freed Juju finally from that suspension. From the suspension for the hit on Vontaze Burfict. But it just seems like this offense is running on all cylinders. How good is this offense compared to every other team in the NFL? Would you say this is the best offense in the NFL?
Right now, yes. The Killer Bees. Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown.
And you could add Chris Boswell in there too.
Listen,
the
that guy,
he
is clutch.
He doesn't miss a kick.
He is clutch. I think that was like his 3rd or 4th game-winning field goal.
And he's made like 20-something in a row.
Oh, yeah. No, the guy is
best kicker in the league right now.
Money. So, no, I mean, I wouldn't want to go up against it. If I'm a defense, I don't want to go up against the Steelers offense right now. Because what are you going to do? You're going to double team Antonio Brown? Okay. Then they're going to hand the ball off to Le'Veon Bell.
Or you throw it to Schuster, you throw it to Bryant.
Yeah, you want to stack guys in the box, then you're leaving those receivers one-on-one. You give Big Ben 2 seconds, and so really it's like pick your poison. What do you want to do? I don't know how you stop this offense right now. I think the only thing what you do is if you're an opponent, you try to keep their offense off the field. So, for the Patriots, I think what they're going to have to do is control the clock,
absolutely,
run the football, and your best defense is keeping the Steelers' offense on the bench, if that makes sense.
No, that's a very good point. I mean, and New England will know how to do that, too. Even this game, they'll know how to do that. And when they get Gronk back, they're going to have clearly a bigger weapon on the field. I don't know how well they can cover Brandon Cooks. Miami really covered Brandon Cooks in the game very well. I don't think the corners for the Steelers are nearly as good as the
Steelers play a lot more zone defense,
exactly,
so it won't be a whole lot of one-on-one matchups. It's going to be more of a team effort in a sense.
No, exactly. So, should be interesting to watch. We'll give our prediction later. We're going to go to break right now. We actually have a lot more NFL to talk about. Minnesota with a big loss to Carolina.
Yes.
How good is Carolina? Aaron Rodgers returns this week. We'll talk about that. The Cowboys get Zeke back in 2 weeks. They get a big win against the New York Giants. All of that and more. We'll also talk about that Seahawks brawl that I know we want to talk about too.
Oh, yes.
So a lot more to talk about here NFL on the NFL. We'll be right back here on the Cover 2 podcast.
Absolutely wasn't. I'm just wondering
if it was the right call for him to throw a beer on me. Just saying.
Did that happen as you were first making your way out?
I'm walking. I'm not talking to nobody. I'm walking out. Somebody throw a beer, then somebody throws another drink. What would you do?
But we start with the potential return of Aaron Rodgers under center for the Green Bay Packers for Week 15. Now, Rodgers has been medically cleared after missing the last 7 weeks with that broken right collarbone suffered against the Vikings. And with a huge game this Sunday at Carolina, Rodgers and the Pack still have a shot at making a late run to the playoffs after their comeback win in Cleveland on Sunday in overtime.
2nd and 5. Newton
wide open. Newton inside the 40, inside the 20, and then has it all the way to the 6 as Waynes tried to strip it away.
Back on the Cover 2 podcast for the second segment of the show. And we're going to continue with our NFL talk because there's so much going on, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show. We're going to dive right in to that really, really good Minnesota Vikings Carolina Panthers game where the Panthers pulled out a win. And it was, really because of Cam Newton. And really, he showed out finally, having one of his better games of the season. He broke off like a 60-yard run. And it was kind of like he's so big, man. He's like 6'6".
It's ridiculous watching him run.
Yeah, it is. So the Panthers get a big win. They improved to 9-4. The Vikings drop this game, go to 10-3. Both these teams are really still in the hunt, but a lot of people right now are saying, "Hey, is this Carolina team for real?" Yeah. Nick, what do you think?
It's hard for me to say because, like I've said in the past, this team is very inconsistent. And they play a big game against a returning Aaron Rodgers, which we'll talk about in a second, this week. And I don't know whether to pick them to win. It's just this team, every single week, are they going to do well? And it seems like they do step up to play good competition nicely. Even though they lost to the Saints 2 weeks ago, it was a good game for Carolina. They played well. The Saints just kind of... I know that the Panthers' defense didn't play as well, but the offense, which has been kind of the main concern, at least in my book, for the Panthers as far as inconsistency goes, it just seems like you don't know what you're going to get. Hey, I like the way they played against the Vikings. 11 rushes for Cam Newton, 70 yards. Now, a lot of that probably happened on the one big play, but still, you're running him 11 times. I like that. That's why the Panthers were 15-1 in 2015. That's why they went to the Super Bowl. When he doesn't run and he doesn't play well, I'm talking about Cam Newton, they don't tend to play well. So it kind of is just, like I've said, determining on if Cam Newton plays well in the game.
It doesn't concern you, though, that with that running style, there's a greater potential for injury? I mean...
Well, but that's like saying, when you come and play a physical team, you're more worried about injury, like if a defense is far more physical. I mean, were teams going into playing Ray Lewis and Ed Reed differently because they thought they'd get hit harder? No, I mean, I think Cam Newton's a big enough dude to be able to take the hits. As long as he's not taking hits to the head, it's fine. That's the way they're going to play. It kind of sucks. You make a good point. It kind of sucks that that's the way the Panthers have to play. But in order for them to win and be a very good team in the NFL, Cam Newton's got to run. That's just what has to happen. So it's unfortunate that's the way it does, but that's what has to happen. And you saw in a game like this, they win the game. They were actually in control most of that game, too. The Vikings with a lot of points in the second half to kind of make a comeback, sort of. But I just don't know what to say about the Panthers because one week they'll play really well, and the other week they'll lose to a terrible team and they won't play well. So I don't know what to expect for their game this week against Green Bay, but I do know they play well. And if they play like that, they can beat anybody. So they could be one of the best teams in the NFL, but I'm not going to say that yet unless they string along a couple games in a row like this.
Yeah, no, they have to do this for a few weeks, and that word consistency that we always talk about, and I believe last week we talked about the same thing, right? It's the consistency. They look great one week. How are they going to play next week against the Packers with Mr. Aaron Rodgers coming back in the fold? So that right there is, because the Panthers needed it any more difficult.
Yeah.
Now the Packers get Aaron Rodgers back. But still, for this Carolina offense, they still need to. Yeah, no, I think they do need to run Cam and continue to run him. I don't know, 8 to 12 times a game.
Yeah.
But Cam also has to be smart. He is a big guy, and he can take hits, from big linebackers. But slide, yeah.
Slide.
He needs to be smarter sometimes. Slide. Don't always try to go for that extra yard or that flash play, Just pick up what you can, slide, and give yourself up. Live to fight another down. So I think that's where, if he can be smart and the coaches can trust him, then I think they need to continue to run him. But if he's going to, I remember, I think it was a year or two ago, Cam Newton, it was like a quarterback draw, and he ran into the end zone and he literally did a flip, front flip, right? Like, you don't want your $100 million quarterback doing a front flip into the end zone. He's not a running back. He's not a receiver, okay? So if they can, simmer him down a little bit, yes, then I think that could be a recipe for success for this team. And I think it's just, it gives defenses and opponents one more thing to have to game plan for. Because if Cam Newton is just dropping back 50 times a game and you expect him to be a complete passer like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, that's not going to work.
No, it's not.
You need to use his legs, keep the defense on their toes. You're not sure what they're going to do. And I think that's how this Carolina Panthers team can get themselves into the playoffs and make some noise.
No, totally. And you talk about smart running. What Carson Wentz did this Sunday was not smart running. He ends up scoring a touchdown. I get that you want to score a touchdown, but
he's so close to the goal line.
It's close.
You can't fault for that.
But I should use a different term than it's not smart running. But that's what you're kind of afraid of.
True.
With a big running back or with a big quarterback, thinking that he can take any hit, and he couldn't. He got hit right in the knee, tore his ACL. That could easily happen to Cam Newton. The concern with him has been head injuries, guys going for his head, because Cam tends to celebrate and talk a lot of crap after he does things good, so guys kind of want to cheap shot him a little bit after plays. That's a concern that Carson Wentz does not have compared to a concern that Cam Newton does have because of the way he plays and the way he shows off a lot. Defenders a lot of times want to get him back for a lot of that stuff. But I agree with you. Hey, here's my thing. If Cam Newton can get you 300 yards any way he can, whether it be passing, whether it be running, whether it be receiving, for all I care. If Cam Newton can get you 300 yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns a game, the Panthers are going to have a good chance of winning. It doesn't matter if he passes for 90 yards and runs for 210. As long as Cam Newton can get you 300 yards in a game, usually they can win. This game, he got you, I think it was a little over 200. That ended up being a win for them, but there was other guys that played well. Jonathan Stewart with 3 touchdowns as well.
He was a beast.
Exactly. A huge game for him. But I think what I'm saying is if Carolina can get Cam Newton to get 300 yards for you anyway, I think they can win a game. If not, it's going to be hard to win games because of the inconsistency with the defense and the inconsistency with the offense. And even these receivers haven't played that well for Carolina either. But so let's move on real quick to the Vikings. We haven't talked about the Vikings yet. Vikings with a loss in this game. They're now 10-3. They looked a little vulnerable in this game. They were playing on the road. It seems to me that they play better at home, in my opinion, than they do on the road. That's like a lot of teams, so it's not too much of a concern. But what does this Vikings team have to do to solidify themselves as, a legit contender? Because we were talking about this last week. They might be the best team in the NFL, but now I don't want to say that because they lose to a team that they should have beat in Carolina. Case Keenum did not necessarily play. He played okay, but he had 2 interceptions in the game. The running game played okay, but only 100 yards and 0 touchdowns. I'm not too concerned about the Vikings, but again, it's hard for me to say that they're the best team in the NFC necessarily, even after the Eagles lost a guy. I still think, let's say the Rams and the Saints are still very good teams. It's tough to say, and it was kind of disappointing for me that the Vikings lost this game.
I'm not even going to go that far. Listen, I think they went up against a really good Carolina Panthers team. It was in Carolina, so like you said, the Vikings didn't have that home field advantage. But I think this is just one of those weeks where they got beat. I'm a still big believer in this Vikings team. I think Case Keenum, yes, he threw 2 interceptions. He didn't have his best game of the season, but he still got the ball to Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs. Thielen had over 100 yards. Diggs had 6 receptions for 64. So he was still spreading the ball around. Yeah, the rushing attack could have played a little better, only having 100 total yards between their 2 main running backs. Listen, I'm really not that worried. I think this Minnesota team is still very much in play, even though Aaron Rodgers is coming back for the Packers. And especially with Wentz now being gone, I think that kind of elevates the Vikings as one of, if not the best team in the NFC. So I think it was just one of those weeks where they got beat by a good team. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, the Vikings, like the power rankings, like, this team is dropping down 10 spots. To me, I could care less about the power rankings. No, I think this team, like you said, they play the Bengals this week. To me, the Bengals are just...
There needs to be a win.
They suck. So, no, it should be a win for the Vikings. Pencil that in. And listen, I think they're going to win the division. I don't think they haven't clinched yet because I think there's still
Green Bay still
technically a chance that Green Bay and the Lions.
They're both 7-6.
Yes.
And there's 3 games left.
Yes.
So, and I think they still, if I'm not mistaken, I think they still have to play both those teams. I think they would play maybe the last.
Yeah,
two games
the way the NFL sets the schedule up nowadays, usually the last 2 to 3 games of the season is typically against a division
Bengals
opponent.
an anomaly.
Yes.
But you're right. It tends to be those last 4 or 5 games are mostly division games.
Yes.
So I'd expect them to play the Vikings and, the Lions and Packers the last 2 games. But they'll probably win the division. I mean, the chances of them losing all 3 of those games is very unlikely.
Yeah, all they really need to do is win this week, potentially win next week, and they should win the division. So like I said, just one of those weeks where they didn't get it done, but I'm still riding with this team. I still think they're a great team. Case Keenum, listen, he is earning himself a big payday in next offseason.
Yeah.
So I believe he's still going to be under contract with the Vikings. But if I'm Case Keenum, I'm like, hey, listen, I know that Teddy Bridgewater's coming back. Sam Bradford is going to come back. If you guys, don't want me, I'm going to go to another team and get some more, get NFL starting caliber money. Because right now, I think he's getting way underpaid for how he's playing.
Sure.
So look out for this guy next year. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be coming after his services.
No, definitely. And the Vikings should think about keeping him, too, because he's really worked out with a lot of those receivers. Adam Thielen having another breakout year with him. So should be interesting to see. But they have a chance to be that number 1 seed. I think my main concern is that they let up a little bit in this game, and are they going to do that in the playoffs as well? But I'm still hoping for the Vikings that there's still that chance of them having all home games in the playoffs, including the Super Bowl. I think it's more of a disappointment with me that I want to see that happen. There's a better chance with the Eagles losing, but they can't keep losing big games like they did this week. Let's move on to another team in the NFC North. We're just talking about them. The Green Bay Packers get Aaron Rodgers back. Carolina plays them this week. We'll predict the game later. But the Packers, we'll start with this. Big come-from-behind win against the Cleveland Browns. You don't normally say that, but Brett Hundley really did a good job for this Packers team, essentially saving their season this week in probably the biggest game of the season, because Aaron Rodgers is actually coming back this week. They finally cleared him yesterday, Tuesday, when I'm talking about we're doing the podcast on Wednesday. They finally cleared him. Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Jared, how good are the chances of the Green Bay Packers making the playoffs now, even though they're a game back of the teams in the playoffs right now? How good are the chances with Aaron Rodgers coming back?
I think they make the wild card now. I don't think they're going to catch up to Minnesota. But listen, Aaron Rodgers is that great and that special that I think he can vault this team, to 3 straight wins to end the regular season, get them to 10-6, and lead them to a wild card spot. I think Brett Hundley has done a great job.
Absolutely.
He's actually, played really well. This is really the first opportunity that he's gotten a chance to play. Ever since he's been drafted by the Packers, he's obviously just been sitting with a clipboard because Aaron Rodgers really hasn't been injured like this before.
A lot like Aaron Rodgers did with Brett Favre.
Yes, very true. So, I think it is a little alarming that the Packers had to go into overtime against the Browns to get a win. But listen, with Aaron Rodgers coming back, I think all that goes out the window. I think you're going to get a boost from this defense because, not to say that they didn't trust Brett Hundley, but when you've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback coming back as a defense, that would make me want to play better and play tougher and play harder. So I think all around it's going to give this whole team a boost. Like you mentioned, this week they're going up against the Panthers. So listen, the Panthers are coming off that. That's going to be another great game.
You got to win a legit game this week.
Yeah,
it is. Not some cakewalk.
So if you're the Panthers, you got to be like, come on. Now we have to come back. Rodgers has to come back right now. He can't wait one more week.
Exactly.
But no, I think it's going to be a great game. And as long as Aaron Rodgers is under center, he's one of those few quarterbacks up there with Tom Brady and like Peyton Manning that when they're in the lineup, it's tough to go against them at all in any week against any opponent.
It's a game changer for them for sure. And you talked about it's a little alarming that they lost or that they were losing the Browns, but the problem was offense, and they fixed that this week with getting Aaron Rodgers back. Brett Hundley is not going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback this year. Obviously he didn't play a lot either, but he wasn't going to be a guy that we were going to say, even if they made the playoffs, that they were going to win the Super Bowl with him.
No, he can't lead a team.
Absolutely, no.
Not yet.
And you saw that. And that's and a guy like Aaron Rodgers doesn't go down by 2 touchdowns to the Cleveland Browns. They're up by 2 touchdowns the whole game. And that's what we'll see with the next 3 games. It should be interesting. I have to agree with you. I actually think that if there is a team that's not in the playoffs right now that I think will get in. They're the best chance to get in. There's another team we'll talk about in a second. I do think it's the Green Bay Packers getting in either at 9-7 or 10-6. I just think that they're with anytime you have Aaron Rodgers on your team, you expect to win every single game, and that's what I kind of expect them to do: win every single game. I don't know the rest of their schedule, but I believe they could win every single game with him, and that's a big thing. Actually, we're looking at the schedule right now: Panthers, Vikings, Lions. That's a tough schedule, but I still think you can win every single one of those with Aaron Rodgers. It doesn't make a difference. So he returns this week. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a big boost. Now let's move on to a team that gets a star returning next week. Not week 15, but week 16. And Jared, I think you're a little familiar with this team, if I'm not mistaken.
Just a little bit.
Dallas Cowboys do get Ezekiel Elliott back next week against Seattle. But Dallas with a big win. They were struggling a little bit against the Giants. Giants played well for about 3 quarters, and then it all fell apart for the New York Giants, like it has the entire season for them. And Dallas was a big win. Dak stepped up late in the game, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns in the game. Alfred Morris would like key runs. Even Rod Smith would like key runs.
Yeah,
in this
Rod
game.
Smith, hello.
Just like the Green Bay Packers, they needed the win, or the season was essentially over. It was going to be very difficult for them to make playoffs. They get the big win. Who they play this week? Because I know you probably know who they play this week.
This week they are Sunday nights at Oakland.
You're right, Oakland. So another tough game. It's a winnable game. But how big? I'll start with this because you are a Cowboys fan. How big was this win against New York? Even though it probably was, you guessed it was going to happen. How big was the win?
Oh, it's huge. Essentially, from here on out, the Cowboys are already in the playoffs. Or they're already every game is a playoff for them.
I was going to say, I don't know.
Yeah, because they have to win out essentially.
I
so
agree with you.
every week is like a playoff game for this team, no matter who they're playing. So I think when now that they're going in with that mentality and knowing that after this week, next Monday, the Cowboys get Ezekiel Elliott back, I think it's just a huge kind of a boost for this team in a sense. Yeah. It's like, all right, we're on high alert right now. We have no room for error. They came out a little flat in the first half against the Giants. I think it was not expected for the Cowboys to come out flat, but I was not surprised that the Giants were playing as well. Number one, it's a division opponent who you know very well, and number two, it was Eli Manning's first game back after his very awkward benching.
And they gave him a standing ovation when he came to the game, which is cool.
So I think the Giants had somewhat of a boost. They came out and took an early lead against the Cowboys. But really in the second half, the Cowboys kind of put their foot down and just showed that they were the better team. Yeah. I just really want to give a shout out to Rod Smith. The guy played lights out. He had 5 receptions for 113 yards. He broke like a 60-yard run late in the game to kind of break the game away. And then he had another 6 carries for 47 yards, another touchdown. I mean, he's kind of like becoming the Cowboys X factor without Ezekiel Elliott. So you bring Zeke back into the fold. You have him, Alfred Morris, and Rod Smith. That's a pretty good 1-2-3 punch right there. So it could take a week for Zeke to get back into the swing of things. Obviously, he's still training, but when you're not playing football for 6 weeks, that physicality, and it's not like he's getting hit right now. So it could take him a game or at least half a game to get back into the swing of things. But I think they're playing really well with Morris and Smith right now.
Agree.
Dak Prescott finally had a really, really good game without Zeke.
Yeah, this is the first time I'd seen him
he really
have
struggled, I think, the first couple weeks without Zeke. There's a lot more attention on him, a lot more pressure on him to lead the offense and have to, throw the ball a lot more. And this game against the Giants, he came out and showed that he can do that. So I think he silenced a lot of the doubters and critics. But he's got to do it again this week against the Oakland Raiders, who have kind of a mediocre defense. So I expect this Cowboys team to come out and get another win, and I expect Dak Prescott to play well again.
Yeah, no, I do too. They play the Raiders this week, and again, we'll talk about more of the predictions for the games a little bit later. But I just want to go back to both these teams, the Packers and the Cowboys, getting big wins. It shows these teams have the playoff mentality because their best players and their most key players are stepping up. You saw in the Cowboys game, Dez Bryant stepped up. Even though he dropped some balls, some key balls earlier in the game, he stepped up, got a big touchdown when they needed it. Brett Hundley bringing them all the way back, and Devontae Adams for the Packers scoring that big touchdown in overtime to solidify the game. Like I mentioned, Rod Smith, the 2 running backs filling in for your guys' guy, Ezekiel Elliott. They stepped up. This shows, and of course, Dak Prescott, let's not forget about him. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns passing. That's why these teams are covered by major networks, by ESPN a lot, because these teams are playoff teams that have bad records. We talked about the Chargers earlier, 7-6. They're not really 7-6. Okay, the Cowboys really aren't 7-6. They just lost. They got Zeke suspended. They still are a playoff team. Green Bay's not really 7-6. They just had Aaron Rodgers out. So I cannot wait to watch the next 3 weeks of the NFL because the teams like this, they're stepping up and making it interesting in the wild card. Ranks, and teams that aren't in the playoffs, still you want to watch their games because their games actually matter. So huge for both these teams, and they both get stars back. Rodgers this week, Ezekiel Elliott next week. Let's talk about one more thing before we kind of predict the bigger games this week and give our formal predictions for this week's game. Seahawks and Jaguars, we're not really going to talk about the game. The Jaguars showed up defensively against Seahawks. They ended up beating the Seahawks. Big game, big win for the Jags, big loss for the Seahawks. We want to talk more about what happened at the end of the game, the brawl, the physicality on the last play when they were kneeling. We were talking about this before the show even started. The Seahawks tend to do this a lot. And it's at the end of games. You actually saw this in the Super Bowl back in, I believe it was 2014. The Seahawks tend to, when the team is kneeling, to run as hard as they can into the linemen a lot. And I have always thought of this as a very dirty type of play in football. You know the game is over. I get that you play till the whistle ends, but you don't need to do that. You know you're going to lose. You're down by 6. The chances of you actually swiping the ball from the center is a low chance. And the Seahawks do this a lot. Michael Bennett tends to try to swipe at the center. This time he took out the center's knees, which incited an entire brawl. Sheldon Richardson decided to go as hard as he could into the guard. So it just happens a lot with the Seahawks. It's in my mind a dirty play for any team. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Cardinals fan and the Seahawks do this. Any time this happens in any of the football games I watch, high school, college, NFL, it's a dirty play. Jared, do you agree with me?
I do agree. I understand, like, you want to play till there's triple zeros on the clock, and you don't want to give up. I understand that, but when a team is clearly kneeling in like winning formation, all you can do at that point is injure someone.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a dangerous play.
It is, yeah. and that incited a couple of ejections by a couple of the Seahawks defensive linemen, and then of course you have the huge incident where one or potentially a couple fans in the stands, Jaguars fans, start throwing beer at one of the Seahawks defensive linemen, and then that lineman essentially almost got into the stands.
He almost run untested.
Yeah, he wanted to leap up there. Luckily, security was right there and was able to prevent him from doing that. But just quickly, I think that was almost a bigger topic, even more so than why these players got ejected. It was the aftermath and the fan throwing the beer. Pete Carroll in the post-game news conference afterwards said that hey, these fans pay a ticket, and so essentially they can do whatever they want. I completely 100% disagree with that.
That doesn't make any
Just
sense.
Because you buy a ticket, I don't care if you buy a $10 ticket or a $10,000 ticket, that does not give you the right to throw anything at any one of these athletes. The only reason why that fan did that was because he knew that the defender couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
If they were walking down the street or they were in an alley, there ain't no way that he's throwing anything at that big 6'5", 300-pound lineman, okay?
No way.
So the only reason he did that was because he knew that he could, basically get under that guy's skin, and there was nothing that guy can do about it. I know it happens a lot. You can talk to basically any professional athlete. I'm sure they've been cussed at, and fans have said things to them that you should probably never say to anyone. I think that's something that, you can just kind of brush off and put your headphones in, you don't have to listen to. But when someone throws something at you, listen, what if, he threw a water bottle, a full water bottle, or that full beer, and it hit that player in the eye,
yeah,
right? And then he can't play football anymore because he's blind in one eye. Like, I know that's a little extreme, but you have to also think of it that way. Like, you could potentially hurt these players. And obviously, whether that guy was drunk or not, that's not an excuse. But I hope that fan gets banned for the rest of the season.
I think they did revoke their... I think season tickets. I think I hope so. Hear that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's two sides to this story, and there's the I personally think both sides are wrong in this situation. I don't think the Seahawks need to be starting brawls at the end of games.
No, not at all.
Because the fans wouldn't have thrown stuff at him if they wouldn't have started that. But also the fans clearly do not need to be doing that, and a guy doesn't need to be trying to go up in the stands and fighting Jaguars fans that he'd know he'd probably whip their ass anyways.
Yeah.
So, so that was interesting. We actually are running out of time here on this segment, so we're actually going to do our predictions for the NFL week of games at the very end of the podcast. We're going to talk a little baseball later in the podcast. At the end of that segment, we'll give our predictions, but we are running low on time. We have to go to our next segment right now, which is a pretty fun segment, right, Jared?
A little do you care?
A little do you care? Coming up next.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll do the NFL predictions later in the show. We're going to make you wait a little bit longer for those predictions on this week's games. Baseball a little later. A lot of big trades and a lot of big signings this week for the Angels and the Yankees. But coming up next, do you care on the other side of this quick break?
Who would have ever thought? And Trey Holder holds the ball, and the finger raised to the air. Bobby Hurley. Oh, my gosh.
Shot clock violation. There's still 1 second to go.
Congratulations, Bobby. A champion in every aspect.
Now a word on Kobe. The Los Angeles Lakers retired jersey numbers are now up to 11 with the news they will honor Kobe Bryant. And unless you're well-versed on Lakers trivia, I wouldn't expect you to know the total of retired numbers prior to today was 9, meaning the Lakers are retiring both 8 and 24. It's the perfect Kobe metaphor. Excessive, over the top, and yet appropriate.
Angelo and LaMelo Ball have signed a 1-year pro deal with a rural Lithuanian team. So, and this is literally a poor, small town Lithuanian team. This is not exactly Father of the Year material by LeVar Ball. They're going to be exposed very quickly. Big Baltic brand. This team has no regular practices due to finances. They don't have a general manager. The only loss in the Baltic League came when the game was abandoned with 3 minutes left. I'm not joking about this stuff.
Come to podcast back here on OC Rock Radio. Jared, do you know what time it is right now?
What time is it, Nick?
It's time for Do You Care? Our favorite game here on the show where we talk about random topics, or as random as we possibly can. We got some random ones today because there wasn't much news. But nonetheless, we're going to do the segment, and we're going to do it well, as we always do.
Always.
So, Jared, I know you love these questions.
Oh, boy.
Jared, do you care that the Los Angeles Lakers NBA team asked a father, LeVar Ball, to tone it down?
Yes, I do care, and I don't know why it took this long for the Lakers to do this.
Really, exactly.
Why didn't they do this right when they knew they were going to draft Lonzo? If I am Magic Johnson, Jeannie Buss, and Luke Walton, that's like one of the first things I'm doing after I go introduce myself to Lonzo is walking over to his dad and telling him, you're gonna tone it down, yeah, or you're not gonna be allowed at the games. Period. So, I mean, the fact that they let it go this long to me is a little bit surprising. And listen, it's just one of those things to where LeVar gets so much of the spotlight and so many reporters want to talk to him that it's taking away press from the actual Lakers organization. ESPN. So yes, and ESPN. So they actually put they enforced a rule that is very uncommon and not really heard of by many, but it's actually a rule that for Lakers home games. And I'm guessing if LeVar does travel to away games, like he was just in New York for the Knicks game last night, the Lakers press is not allowed to go and interview anyone that is associated with these players, as far as family members, friends, any of that. You can only be, basically only the basketball players or coaches, or you legitimately have to be associated with the Lakers organization to be interviewed. They are tired of hearing Lonzo, even if he's not, saying anything bad. It's just the fact of he has his own spotlight, and he's going to be interviewed by every other media source there is. I think they're just trying to control on their end, making sure that he's not saying anything that can make this team look bad. So I completely agree with it. Like I said, I wish they would have done it sooner, but I'm glad, and hopefully this means less LeVar Ball. Nick, staying with the Ball family and talking about.
Can't wait.
Yeah, right. These two kids who are no longer going to be associated with UCLA. Nick, do you care that LaMelo and LiAngelo are set to play for Lithuania?
No, I do not care because I'm not going to watch Lithuanian basketball. I don't think you will, Jared. I don't know if your
It's a big no.
TV subscription will let you watch Lithuanian basketball.
Don't think
Mine
so.
does not.
No?
So
Okay.
I don't think yours did either. But yeah, LaMelo Ball, LiAngelo Ball, signing in Lithuania. This just is the weirdest saga we've seen here in Southern California for basketball players in a long time, especially high school basketball player. LaMelo Ball being this popular that Andrew Wojnarowski, or whatever the hell his name is actually covering them. The number one NBA guy that covers stuff for ESPN is covering a high school basketball player signing with a Lithuanian team. How crazy does that sound? I don't care because I don't think these guys are going to end up making it in the NBA because of this.
You don't think LaMelo will?
I just think his reputation is kind of hurt, and his dad has gotten so crazy lately that I should say it hurts their chances a lot more signing in Lithuania. 1 year deal, by the way, not 2. So LaMelo still is 2 years away from being able to play in the NBA. So he's going to have to figure out something else. LaMelo, if he ends up starring in Lithuania and ends up being a star, there's a chance he could be in the NBA. But I just think this whole saga is so weird. I heard the coach. This is you'll like this. I heard the coach for this Lithuanian team. His salary is so low that after the games he sells meat to the players. I'm not even kidding. That was a report that came out the other day. I think it was Fran Fischella came out with the report. So
wow,
that's what they're gonna have to deal with. A lot of the local guys on radio here in LA were having fun with it and giving us home prices and sending the Balls apartments that they could rent in Lithuania for the time. But I mean, these guys are going from being celebrities to living in Lithuania. This should be hilarious. I don't care, though. I'm not going to follow these guys. I really wish the media didn't follow these brothers as much anymore, because it doesn't matter. Just because their brother plays the NBA, just because their dad talks a lot of crap, does not mean that we should still talk about these guys. And I'm going to end talking about them right now.
Thank you.
Jared, do you care that the Thunder are 12-14?
You know what? I do care because, listen, the Thunder going into this offseason, you know you have Russell Westbrook. You sign him to a ridiculous contract. Then you pick up Carmelo Anthony.
Was it a ridiculous contract, though? Or was it kind of a contract that he deserved?
Okay. I just mean ridiculous in the amount of money.
I get it.
No,
Totally
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. Yes, he completely does. I stand corrected. Okay. Should have used a different, poor choice of words. Yeah. Sorry, Nick. No. So they get, obviously they have him. They get, all right. Seriously, they get Carmelo Anthony, and they also get Paul George, right? It's like a new three-headed monster, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, this team is going to they're going to contend with the Warriors. They're going to be one of the teams to beat. And, I mean, I didn't think they would have a 12-14 record. I thought they'd be able to play better than this. But I think I was one of the few that said, listen, like, temper your expectations for one specific reason. Carmelo Anthony and Paul George both play the same position. So they're not necessarily interchangeable. I guess Paul George can play a little bit more of the shooting guard. But really, when Paul George was with Indiana and when Carmelo Anthony was with the Knicks, they were both playing really that small forward position. So one of the two guys has to transition to a new role. And when you think about it, there's only one basketball to go around. You know Russell Westbrook wants the ball in his hands. Carmelo Anthony is a scorer. He doesn't play defense. And Paul George, when he was in Indiana, he was used to having the ball in his hands as well. So it's going to take time to adjust for these players to kind of figure each other out and say, all right, you're better at the end of game situations. You know what I mean? Like, they all want the ball, and I just don't think that they've figured each other out yet. So, I mean, I think there's obviously still a lot of time for this team to turn it around and make a playoff push, because we're still only in the first half of the season. But for those who thought this team was just going to blow past everyone and, go like 20-2 or something ridiculous like that, I think, you're obviously showing that they're totally wrong. So, I think this is just somewhat of a one-hit wonder. I think Paul George is going to be gone, whether he goes to the Lakers or another team. And then I think it'll be better with a two-headed monster, with Westbrook and Carmelo or Westbrook and George as opposed to all three. So I don't think this is really going to work, or it's going to be a long-term solution. Nick, do you care, sticking with those Pacers, that in 2021 they will be getting the All-Star game in Indiana?
No, I don't care. It's more just gets me excited for this All-Star game this year because it's going to be in LA, so it should be a pretty good show. I'll use this as an excuse to talk about the fact that Paul George is playing the Pacers tonight with the Thunder. I'm interested to see the reaction from the crowd because obviously they traded him, so you can't get too angry with him. The fact that he left, it wasn't really him necessarily 100% that he left. But I am interested to see what the reaction is. But no, I don't really care that they got the All-Star game because Indiana's not really a cool place to have an All-Star game. No offense to people in Indiana, but I even get annoyed when they I believe was the Super Bowl in Indianapolis recently too. I can't remember if it was. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was another big game, but maybe it's like national championship or something for college football. But
yeah, I think it was college football.
Indiana is not a spectacular place to have an All-Star game, so I don't really care about the fact that the Pacers specifically are getting it. I don't really care that the game is in Indiana. I kind of want to use an excuse to just say that I'm interested to see the crowd reaction for the game tonight, where Paul George is returning for Indiana for the first time since he left. Jared, do you care that Kobe Bryant, I think you know him, right?
Yeah, I mean, not personally, but yeah, I know.
But you know
him.
who he is.
A little bit, yeah.
He's getting his jersey retired on Monday against the Golden State Warriors.
Of course, this is probably the easiest yes you will ever get from me in the history of Do You Care. Not only, I believe he's going to be the first player as well to get two jersey numbers retired.
The debate is over, guys.
Yeah.
He's getting both numbers retired, not one or the other.
8 and 24, both. And well-deserved. I mean, he won 3 championships with the number 8 jersey. Obviously, he had Shaq and Robert Horry and Derek Fisher and all those guys and that crew, and then switched to number 24, and he was able to win 2 more with Pau Gasol, Lamar Odom, and that crew. So I think it was too tough to pick one over the other, right? Obviously, he was a more dominant player. Not obviously, I think in my opinion, he was more of a dominant player when he got to number 24 because he maybe didn't necessarily have Shaq. He didn't have Shaq, and so he had to do more of the work. But still, with number 8, you win 3 championships back to back to back. That whole legacy that team had, and it's just I think it's fitting that the Lakers are honoring both jersey numbers. I think it's going to be a great ceremony. Well deserved, and very, very soon Kobe will have a statue out front of Staples Center, and I will not be surprised if one day he is working for the Lakers in the front office, some type of capacity as a coach or a special advisor, whatever you want to call it. I know he's got Kobe Inc. and he's doing all these other great things, but I don't think there's any way that he completely steps away from the game of basketball. So congrats, Kobe.
Interesting fact. So he actually had an interview with the Lakers station Sportsnet LA recently, just taking 2 things you said there. He actually did say that he didn't want to join management. I don't believe him either.
He's saying that now.
I don't believe him either.
Nope.
But he actually said, and he actually said that if he had to pick, he would have picked 24 because it was the last one he wore. There was no specific reason to pick 24 over 8, but he just said it was the last. It was the one I retired in. So if he had to pick one, he would pick 24. Just wanted to say that real quick.
Yeah.
If anybody didn't know that.
Yeah,
because his jersey is getting retired. This is going to be a great ceremony. I can't wait to.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot wait.
Monday night. Yeah. Nick, last question. Do you care? Arizona State jumps 11 spots to number 5 in the latest basketball rankings.
I do care because ASU basketball has not been good, really, for the last 25, 30 years. And U of A basketball has always dominated the state of Arizona and even the state of Western basketball for a long time now, really since UCLA had Kevin Love and Westbrook on their team. So I do care. They're number 5. They jumped from 16 after a big win at Kansas. They're in the top 5 for the first time in a while. I can't even tell you how the last time. I do care also because I'm going to be in Arizona for Christmas. I'm actually going to try to go to one of these games. I'm really interested to see this team play. They're a fun team to watch. That they have that curtain of distraction at ASU where they have the students down there and they distract people with random things. They pull a curtain And there's always a weird thing that's going on inside that curtain when the guy's shooting free throws. So you kind of have to watch what's happening. I remember a funny one where they pulled the curtain and Michael Phelps was in a Speedo during free throw. That's the one I can remember just off the top of my head. So very interested to see how this team does. I always like when these teams in college basketball come up from essentially nothing and really start making a difference, because it gets old watching Kansas and Kentucky and even UCLA dominate basketball, and Michigan State, Tom Izzo. So to have a team that is never really good be in the top 5, that's interesting to me, and I really like it. That is the end of our Do You Care segment. On the other side of this break, we're going to be talking about all the big baseball news. Giancarlo Stanton to the New York Yankees. What is that lineup going to be like to watch? Shohei Ohtani to the Angels. There's multiple news about him to talk about. And we'll talk about any other rumors that are going on. We'll also, like we mentioned, we'll do our predictions for Week 15 in the NFL as well at the end of the segment. We'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast.
Following the Yankees' trade of Chase Headley to the Padres on Tuesday, reports have surfaced stating that New York is now interested in Orioles third baseman Manny Machado. The three-time All-Star made his debut in 2012, and he's pretty much been on a tear ever since. In 6 years, the former third overall MLB draft pick has hit .279 at the plate with 138 home runs and 406 RBI.
Huge news in baseball today. Shohei Ohtani signing with the LA Angels. His agent saying this wasn't about market size, time zone, or league. He felt a true bond with the Angels, more so than the Cubs, Rangers, Dodgers, Padres, Yankees, Mariners.
Giancarlo, the 4 teams that you were willing to approve a trade to, all winning teams who are expected to win next year. The pressure of playing in New York, is that something you're looking forward to?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Fun new dynamic, something completely different from what I'm used to. But I figure my new teammates will help me out if I have any questions or need guidance, and we'll have fun together.
Cover 2 podcast live on OC Rock Radio for our final segment of the show. Once again, I'm Jared Smith.
I'm Nick Nenad.
And Nick, it's time for a lot of baseball talk. Winter meetings are happening right now. For those who don't know, Shohei Ohtani with the Angels, a lot going on.
Babe Ruth of Japan.
Yeah, supposedly. We'll see if that transitions to Major League Baseball. Obviously, a lot of news coming out with him. The reports are that he had an injection in his throwing shoulder. How will that affect him going? His elbow, I'm sorry. Yeah. How will that affect him going forward? Obviously, the Yankees with if not the second biggest splash.
Got a pretty good player.
They got a home run hitter, I guess you could say that, in Giancarlo Stanton, to pair with another home run hitter in Aaron Judge. And the Marlins are just apparently releasing it and trading everyone away.
I'd like to call this a fire sale in Miami, but I think they're firebombing their team instead.
Ooh, wow. Trading, of course, Stanton trading away their all-star second baseman, D. Gordon.
Yep.
They just traded away Ozuna.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so that's brand new news. That's brand new
to the
news,
Cardinals. I believe that was today or this morning. So a lot to talk about. Nick, we're going to get started with the Yankees and Giancarlo Stanton. Just your initial thoughts on the trade, and how does this Yankees lineup shake out now?
Well, the lineup, it looks stupid because you have...
stupid in a good way?
In a very, very, very good way.
Okay, got it.
For a Yankee fan, in a very, very bad way for any other
For
fan,
all 29 other Major League teams.
Yeah, every other 29 teams and any expansion teams that want to join the league in the next couple of years. Giancarlo Stanton traded the Yankees in what some thought was a lopsided trade. I don't think that because Stanton's contract is 10 years, $295 million. So look at it; it's $30 million a year, essentially for 10 years. You're having to lock up that contract. The Yankees gave away their starting second baseman, Starlin Castro, and 2 minor league prospects, not big prospects, but prospects in their own right. That doesn't matter as much. I don't really care about the fact that it was lopsided. When you're bringing on almost all of that money, it can be a little lopsided. Okay, it's okay for that to happen. Stanton traded the Yankees, and now he's going to be with his surrogate brother, I like to call him, Aaron Judge. They're going to be essentially 2-3 in that lineup. The lineup is really going to look like you're going to have Brett Gardner batting leadoff, good leadoff hitter. You're going to have Judge batting second, Stanton batting third, Didi Gregorius fourth, Gary Sanchez fifth, and Greg Bird sixth. That is a dangerous, dangerous lineup. But we talked a lot about the World Series, when the World Series was going on, how good the Houston Astros lineup was. This is on par with that now. Giancarlo Stanton is the NL MVP, if you didn't know. Aaron Judge finished second in the AL MVP voting. They have 2 all-time players on their team right now. And you're getting as close, in my opinion, to Ruth and Gehrig in the same lineup right now. With the fact that
that's a bold statement.
I'll compare them that way because Stanton's a 50 home run guy. Judge is a 50 home run guy. They both hit 50 home runs last year. And they're in the same lineup, along with Gary Sanchez, along with Didi Gregorius, along with a finally healthy Greg Bird. This is a ridiculous team. And Jared, I want to get your thoughts on this because you're kind of looking at this as an outsider. You don't follow baseball as much. What does this look like to you, having a star join another star in baseball?
To me, this is the old Yankees of the past buying another star.
Very good point.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying this is what teams can do in baseball. If you have money, you can go out and buy players. You don't have to wait for. Well, in this case, they did have to wait because Stanton did have a full no trade clause with the Marlins, so he did have to approve this trade. But the Yankees were willing to take on that massive contract, pair him with Aaron Judge and their other all-stars. And, it sucks for the smaller organizations who don't have the money to do it or can't do it, but it's just what it is in baseball. And it's funny, I'm reading an article on ESPN by Buster Olney who brings up an interesting point because I know you talked about the lineup and where they're going to put these 2 home run hitters. Only thinks that potentially Judge put him in the leadoff spot.
Oh my gosh.
Have him lead off. Now, obviously, Judge is a home run hitter,
yes,
and you want to have guys on base for him to come up and hit 2-3 home runs, right? But think about it this way: I believe he led the MLB in walks last year, and he takes a lot of pitches.
I believe he also led the league in strikeouts, though.
He did, yes, but. What do you want out of a leadoff hitter? You want a guy that takes a lot of pitches so that the rest of the lineup can see what that opponent, what that pitcher is throwing. Listen, you want a guy that gets on base. So yes, he did lead the league in strikeouts, but he also led the league in walks. And I think the more experience and the more that Judge gets to play, I think he's going to get more comfortable and not necessarily swing at those bad pitches. I mean, you're going to have slumps. You're going to go up and down. The first half of the season, obviously, he was an all-star. The beginning of the second half, he looked like an average at best player. So there's going to be, slumps. And I think that the thing that Aaron Boone, the new manager of the Yankees, the greatest thing that he has now is flexibility. He can play with this roster, and he can have these guys leading leadoff, number 2, 3, and 4. I mean, he can do so much that if I'm him, it's like it's Christmas every day of the year for him. So I would be very interested to see if he does put Judge in that number 1 leadoff spot. Obviously, for the longest time, you've really had Brett Gardner in that leadoff spot, and obviously he's a guy that fouls off a lot of pitches. He takes a lot of pitches as well. Gardner is more of a speed threat when on base, and that's also something that you want out of a leadoff hitter. So, I would definitely expect Gardner to still stay in that leadoff or that number 2 spot. But I think it's just interesting overall. Again, the Yankees, had a really good season last year. You have to pencil them in right now as one of the top teams coming into this season for sure. So, listen, when the Yankees are doing well, I think it's good for baseball in general as a whole. So, congratulations to the Yankees, and there's going to be a lot of baseballs in the stands. I think those right and left field seats are going to be a little bit more expensive this year.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Watch the women and children out in the outfield this year with these rockets coming into the stands.
Yeah.
No, just talking about going to your point of Judge taking a lot of pitches. It will be a lot easier for him to take pitches because he's got the freaking NL MVP behind him in the lineup. That's one of the reasons I'm looking at this all-name lineup you have. One of the reasons I disagree with the fact that he should bat leadoff is that I want Stanton protecting that guy. I want Stanton behind him so Judge, who did strike out a lot, he did slump. There's nobody you cannot say he did not slump second half of the season last year. So you want him to be able to see as many good pitches as he possibly can. I think Gardner's a good enough leadoff hitter too. Gardner does the same thing that you were talking about. He takes pitches, he foul pitches off. So I don't see a reason why I'd switch up that. I just say add Stanton third, and instead of Didi Gregorius or Gary Sanchez third, just put Stanton there. I think you got to have Stanton protecting Aaron Judge, and then you have Didi Gregorius protecting Stanton in a way, and then you have Gary Sanchez protecting Didi Gregorius, and so on. So I think I would go with the traditional leadoff hitter, in my opinion, and then have Judge second, Stanton third, just to have that major protection for Judge.
That's so nasty.
Stanton doesn't need protection necessarily. Okay, he can hit the ball out of the ballpark when he mishits it. Okay, especially in that right field. He's gonna hit a couple balls that are gonna look like fly balls to right. They're gonna go into the upper deck.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be nasty to watch this Yankees lineup for sure. Now, speaking of the Yankees, just extending on more, they've also been linked to possibly getting some good starting pitchers. Patrick Corbin, one left-handed pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's their 2 or 3. Garrett Cole, number 1 pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So the Yankees are, let's just say, going for it this year. They saw what happened last year. They lost in Game 7. They were that close with that lineup. What are they going to do if they can get a number 1 starting pitcher along with Luis Severino, along with Masahiro Tanaka, who showed when he's healthy, he's still one of the best pitchers in the game. You also had CC Sabathia, if they can keep him in that rotation as well. And then you had Stanton to the lineup. This, in my opinion, is the best team in the AL if they can get another starting pitcher. I'm still going to give the Astros the lead over them because they have Verlander still.
Yeah,
they have
true.
Dallas Keuchel. Those are 2 guys that I think are better than any of the 2 pitchers on the Yankees. Starting for them. So I think if they can get that really good starting pitcher and add that 4th guy to the rotation for a playoff push, I think that's what makes them the best team in the AL. But right now, I'll still stick with the Houston Astros. But man, it's gonna be fun if the Astros and Yankees go at it again. Wow, is that playoff series gonna be fun to watch?
Yeah,
those 2 lineups.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Obviously, this hitting lineup for the Yankees is going to be unreal, and they're going to be. I think they have the potential to lead the league in most runs per game. But no, you're right. In the end of the day, it always comes down to pitching and your bullpen. And can you have a guy or multiple guys that you can consistently rely on to go 6, 7, 8 innings, right? So where you're not having to kill your bullpen every night, and especially when you get into the playoffs, you can save your bullpen and have them fresh if needed. So no, I completely agree with you. They need to find that 4th starting pitcher. They lose Pineda. I believe he just signed with the Twins.
Yeah, just signed.
He did just sign with the Twins. So no, they definitely need that 4th guy. Another interesting topic that I wanted to bring up for Mr. Baseball Guru, and you know exactly where I'm going. The Orioles, a division rival of the Yankees, are potentially putting Manny Machado on the block.
Okay.
The Yankees, Manny Machado, is that another player that they go out and buy?
Well,
is that even a legit possibility?
The interesting thing here is they traded Chase Headley, the 3rd baseman, yesterday. They do not have Todd Frazier on the roster right now. He's a free agent, so they don't have a 3rd baseman. If they actually, weird enough, have enough money right now to get Machado's contract at this point, but Machado's contract is not anything. He's still in the rookie phases of his contract. It takes 6 years of playing to get that major contract. He's eligible to be a free agent after next year. If Machado were to join the Yankees, I would have to say that would be the best lineup of all time. To have those 3 guys in a row, Judge, Stanton, Machado, all below 30 years old, that'd be ridiculous, and you could probably just give the crown to the Yankees every single year. That would be crazy. It's total speculation that would happen. The Orioles have put him on the market. I don't see the Orioles trading Machado to the Yankees. I just why would you trade? Essentially, give up your own division.
Yeah.
When you have a star and you have control of him, at least this offseason, if the Orioles, start to stink next year and start to be bad, and they can clearly see they're going to need to rebuild, maybe you trade him then. I don't see him getting traded at the winter meetings. I see him more likely getting traded in July, because they're definitely going to want to get rid of him if the Orioles have no chance at the title next year. So you're definitely going to want to get rid of him so you have something for him instead of just losing him to free agency and getting a compensation draft pick. In baseball, that tends to not work out as well, for sure. But that's an interesting topic you bring up. If Machado is a free agent. The Yankees can afford him for at least 1 year and maybe even sign him to a big contract the next year. They have a lot of money because a lot of their guys are super young. So even though they bring on the Stanton contract and they bring on a lot of the money, they still have enough money for Machado. So it is a possibility, a legitimate possibility, that Machado joins that lineup.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a fantastic point about how you don't think that Machado would get traded right now, that it would be more of later on in the season. I think that's not something that many people necessarily think about originally. You just kind of think, oh my gosh, what would this lineup be if all three of these guys were there, right? But no, I think you bring up a great point. If you're Baltimore, number one, if you're going to trade him, why would you want to trade him to a division rival and make them better when they're already fantastic?
Your team's still good right now.
So yes, no, if I'm the Orioles, I'm going to wait it out, see how the season goes. If we're playing well, we're in playoff contention, we're going to say, listen, we're going to keep you around. You're a professional athlete. Deal with it even if you don't want to be here. If the team isn't doing well, then I think they start to explore their options a little more. And if you do trade him to the Yankees, then it's at least for only half the season.
Yeah.
And then who knows when he does become a free agent, if the Yankees can't afford him or if he wants to take money somewhere else. So I do think you bring up a great point. Me personally, I don't want to see this happen.
I don't either.
I don't mind, two stars, joining together like Judge and Stanton are now doing. But I think you want parity in the sport. You want multiple teams playing well. You don't want just 2 or 3 teams playing well and everyone else sucking, and then it's almost easy to predict who's going to make it to the playoffs in the World Series.
Think about it this way too. When you go, let's say, because we go to a lot of Angel games too, because we're so close to the Angels. When you go and see, the Orioles aren't a very popular team at all.
No.
But when you go, you're like, oh, there's Manny Machado. He's really good. I like to actually want to see him back.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If it's the Yankees, then it's all 3 of them. And then you're getting the Orioles. Who do they have? They have Chris Davis. So how popular is he? You know what I'm saying? So I agree with you. Keep the parity in MLB as much as we can. We've seen this happen in the NBA to an extent where it's almost ruining the game a little bit. I would hate for it to happen to baseball. So, yeah, if I had to choose, obviously I don't want Manny Machado to join the Yankees. I'd rather see him join the Dodgers or the Angels.
Oh, okay.
Personally,
quick side note, by the way.
Yeah.
When we do go to Angels games from now on, prepare to pay a little bit more money when the Yankees come to town, because I guarantee you,
more expensive.
Yeah, I guarantee you to start paying that Stanton salary, teams are going to be charging way more for these seats.
Exactly,
so no more $15 seats in right field. It's going to be about 30, 45, even 50. So start saving your money now if you plan on.
The scalper outside near
I'm dead
That's
serious.
The scalper's near the grill.
Yep, I can already see it now. These tickets are going to be way expensive, and even for the Angels having to pay for Ohtani, it's going to be nuts.
Totally. So talk about Ohtani. Angels signed Shohei Ohtani. They've been calling him the Babe Ruth of Japan. He can hit. The reason they call him that is because he can hit and pitch. He's expected to be in the Angels lineup as a DH for most of the games during the week, and he's also going to start for them. The Angels have also talked about having a 6-man rotation because pitchers in Japan are only used to pitching once a week, contrary to MLB pitchers pitching twice a week. You see Kershaw a lot of times for the Dodgers, an example of an ace, pitching Tuesday and then he'll pitch Sunday, or he'll pitch Wednesday and then Monday. It's 2 times in the week span. So that's all good and well. That was going to be great to talk about the Angels and having this star. Then last night, Tuesday, recording the podcast on Wednesday, like we say, they say that Shohei Ohtani there's an injury detected in his elbow. It's the ulnar nerve. That is what I like to call the Tommy John nerve. Now, Billy Epler and a couple of the others, Angels front office guys, came out and said, well, we were okay with this when we originally saw the MRI, when we originally were going to sign him. They actually knew about this injury. They said that they knew about this and that a lot of pitchers that are really good have this injury this tear in their ulnar nerve, in their elbow. It does not mean that he's injured right now. He can still pitch right now. But what it does mean is there is a highly likely chance that he will have to have Tommy John surgery eventually, but there's also a chance that he never will have to have it. Steven Strasburg, for example, had to have Tommy John surgery. But there are guys that have never had Tommy John surgery that have this injury still in their elbow. So, not for Angels fans, calm down.
Pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes. It's not that bad, and he will pitch for us this year. He always could get hurt, use this injury, but for right now, he's penciled in like a number 1 starter like he was when we signed him. No big deal, but it is concerning because we did not hear this when he was talking to teams about who he was going to sign with.
No, of course, and if you're either him or a part of that a part of that team, that's not something that you want revealed. Of course, for all the teams that were, looking to sign him, that's something that's going to need to be revealed.
Yeah.
But more or less on the down low. I don't think it's something that they wanted to get out to the public and to the media quite yet to create a stir.
Exactly.
So listen, when you hear of, oh my gosh, he has an injection, a lot of people are just going to automatically think he's injured. Is he even going to play?
Done.
Right? Right?
Did
the Angels just blow $20 million, right?
It's not that
get
much.
to him?
He's not signed for that much.
No, right. But you get what I'm saying. But no, just the Yankees right-handed pitcher, Tanaka, and the Red Sox pitcher, Chris Sale, that have both had this injection and have both continued to play without
great
injury.
Example.
So,
Those guys, it's like Chris Sales, one of the top guys in the MLB.
Yes, so it can definitely, he can definitely still come out and have a good year, or at least pitch, and then we can see what he can do. So like you just mentioned, I think people need to pump the brakes and give this guy an opportunity to play. And also, like I do tend to say with a lot of new players or going to a different situation, give this kid some time.
Absolutely.
Number one, he's 23. He's going to start out in the minors. Who knows when he's actually going to get called up?
I think he'll be in the majors.
Really?
Yeah,
you think he's going to start?
They're penciling him. They expect him to be in the lineup. I think this guy's better than we all think he is. Yeah,
Okay.
This guy, he'll be definitely in their rotation. I don't know about hitting as much. I think his clear downside of the hitting and pitching is the hitting. He's not as good of a hitter as he is a pitcher, but I think he'll definitely be in the majors.
Okay. I want to pump. Listen, the expectations need to be high because of all of the hype that's gone around. But people that expect him to come out here and throw, 0.5 ERA and writing all this crazy, ridiculous stuff and just lead the Angels to the World Series. Temper your expectations a little bit. Give this kid some time to adjust. And I know you probably know this better than I, but aren't the baseballs in the major leagues isn't it a different actual size baseball?
I don't think it
than what he's
matters
been pitching?
too much though, because we've seen Yu Darvish and Kentai Maeda come over, and other Japanese pitchers, Masahiro Tanaka, come over, and the ball doesn't
adjust.
It's more of the day's rest that's the big thing for them, and they tend to. Not either you have to put an innings limit on them, or like the Angels, they said they're probably legitimately going to do a six-man rotation. That's probably good for them too, because they have a lot of injuries.
Yes, they do.
In the rotation. But yeah, I agree with you. If you're an Angel fan, hope that Garrett Richards does well.
Yeah,
hope that Tyler
Skaggs can stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
If those guys can stay healthy, that's a pretty good lineup.
Ohtani's a plus.
Yes, it is. He is. The Angels. Right now, they need a lot of bullpen pitching help, is what I've been expressing for years.
Since all last year. Yeah.
All last year, it's pitching. And listen, when Garrett Richards and Tyler Skaggs are healthy, they're two good pitchers. And Garrett Richards could easily be the ace for the Angels. But they need to stay healthy. When you're on the DL for 60 days, and then you have Tommy John surgery, or you're out for an extended period of time, it's just this Angels team gets so far behind. And listen, their farm system isn't great, so it's not like they can just sit here and call guys up and have next man up mentality replacement players. That is really what hurts this team. You still have Mike Trout and Pujols, even though Pujols isn't what he used to be. You have these star players on your roster, but the Angels aren't scoring 6-7 runs a night. Sometimes they're only scoring 1 or 2. And the bullpen and the rest of this pitching staff is not getting it done. Absolutely. So, if they can stay healthy, pitching wise, and obviously their batters, if they can collectively stay healthy for the majority of the season, I agree with you. I still think this is the Astros division and the Astros to come out of the AL, but the Angels can be one of those top wild card seeds if healthy.
No, totally agree. Should be fun to watch the time. Running out of time on the podcast. We got 5 minutes left, so let's transition. We don't want to run out of time again on this segment. We want to do our NFL predictions for this week. We're just going to talk about the big games. We're not going to talk about the teams that really are out of the playoff contention. So, I'm waiting for Jared to get this schedule up, and we'll start going at it. We've got 5 minutes left, like I said, so we'll go through it pretty quickly. Let's start Los Angeles and Kansas City. This is a big game for the AFC West. This is really, in my opinion, for the AFC West, because the Chargers have been so good. I don't see them losing too many games. Jared, who you got between the Chargers and Chiefs?
This is a really, really tough game to predict. The Chargers obviously are coming in really, really hot. They've won 5-6 games in a row?
7-2.
7-2. Going into Kansas City, going to be probably pretty cold.
Yep.
Chargers aren't really necessarily used to playing in the cold.
No.
Kansas City's been up and down. I mean, they start the year off fantastic, and you think they're they beat the Patriots week 1. You think they're just gonna pretty much take the division, and then they go on a huge slump. They lose Marcus Peters to a team suspension last week, but they still come out and beat the Raiders. I'm going to give it to Kansas City because they're getting Peters back, and because they're at home, and because I think Travis Kelce and this offense will be a little too much for the Chargers defense. So I think it's going to be a great game, a really, really close game. Usually these two teams are very close, but I'm giving it to Kansas City because they're at home.
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think the Chargers won this game. I just think their offense is running on such a high octane that it's going to be hard for me to say that they're not going to score another 20, 30 points in this game. I think the Chiefs' defense is disappointed this year. It had a good game against the Raiders. I get it, but I still think there's a lot of dissension in that locker room on who really should be the quarterback and stuff like that. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. Interesting fact about that game, it's on Saturday as well.
Yes,
they're helping us out with the no college football, putting a big game on at 5:30 on the NFL Network. So that should be big. Moving on. Let's go Green Bay and Carolina. We talked about this game a little bit earlier. Aaron Rodgers returns against Carolina in Carolina. I'm going to go with Green Bay. I still think Green Bay will win Carolina. Like I said, Carolina is too inconsistent. I think Aaron Rodgers will get it done, and the pack will help their chances for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to come out and throw for like 300 yards, 350 yards, and say, "I'm back, everyone."
Yeah,
right? No. So just very quickly, Packers. I think this is another close game. I think Carolina will stay with the Packers for the majority, but I think Aaron Rodgers leads this team in the fourth quarter and scores late to get the W.
No, totally. Los Angeles at Seattle. This is essentially for the NFC West. Big game in Seattle, like we've seen a lot. I'll start with this one. I'm going to go Rams, though. I think the Rams are a little disappointed they lost to the Eagles this week. I think their offense is clearly better than the Seattle defense this year. And I think just because Seattle, it's loud there and stuff, I don't think that'll make a difference. The Seattle team doesn't seem like a playoff team to me this year. Most of the time, so I'm going to go Rams. I think the Rams win, and they end up winning the NFC West.
I think Seattle wins because of Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson right now, with a Carson Wentz injury, I think you could vault him into that MVP conversation now as potentially the leader. And because I think Seattle's at home, I think that noise factor is definitely something that will come into play for this game. So another close, but a lot of these games I think are going to be close.
Yeah.
The Rams are a legitimate team. They're going to have to bounce back after that tough loss to the Eagles this past week. But I am giving it to Seattle at home. I think they're too difficult at home.
Dallas at Oakland. This is the Sunday night game. Jerry, I'll let you start. Who do you think wins?
Yeah, no, like I said, for Dallas, every week is a playoff game for them now. So Oakland getting trounced by Kansas City last week. I think Oakland is trending downwards. I think the Cowboys are trending up, knowing that they have Zeke coming back in 1 week. So I'm giving this game to the Cowboys. I think they win by 10 or 13 points relatively easily. I think the Cowboys are the more talented team, and as long as they come out and play well and stay healthy, they should win this game.
I agree. I think Dallas wins. Oakland, like you said, they're downturning. They should win this game. Dallas needs to win, so I think they will win. Real quick, last one. We did analyze this game a little bit, so let's kind of just pick who wins because we are running out of time. New England at Pittsburgh. Who we got?
I mean, how can you go against Pittsburgh right now? That offense, and you get Juju Smith-Schuster back. The defense is playing well. Pittsburgh at home.
I'm going to throw a little wrench in it. I think New England ends up coming back. I think New England wins. They want that home game in the playoffs, and they're not getting it in this week, so they don't want to play 2 games in Pittsburgh this year. I think New England wins. There you go. You hear the music right there. That means it's the end of the podcast. It's a good podcast today, man.
Great
a lot
show.
of football, some good baseball talk. We'll probably talk about more baseball next week with more winter meeting signings. But nonetheless, great show. We'll be back next week. Cover 2 podcast on OC Rock. Great.